He lost his health. He had sores all over his body. And his wife said to him, this is in Job chapter 2 and verse 10, or rather verse 9, why don't you just curse God and die? Well, that's a nice way to encourage a man, isn't it? That's a good way to encourage a man. He got his legs knocked out from under him. And then along comes, he's got 3 friends, and they come to comfort him. And they sat down there 7 days with Job. 7 days and 7 nights, didn't say a word to Job. And his grief was very great. But in all of that, we're told that Job did not sin, because he said, the Lord gives, the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. He said what? What's the rest of it? It starts with a B. Go ahead. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But you think he wasn't depressed? And then there's Moses leading a murmuring, complaining bunch of people out of the land of Egypt. And they got to the point, they said, what in the world did you bring us out here in the wilderness to die for? Why, I said, we remember all of the melons and the garlic and all of that. What in the world would they think about garlic for when they were hungry? That'd be the last thing I want on my mind, you know. But anyway, they thought about all they had back in Egypt. And no doubt that depressed Moses. John the Baptist got depressed. I'm convinced of that. He was in prison, and he began to hear about Jesus. And John is the one who prepared the way for Christ. And now he's asking, while he's sitting in prison, he heard about Jesus and all his teaching and preaching, and he said, is this he who should come, or do I look for another? I believe he got so depressed he began to question what he was saying. And so the point I'm making is all people can be depressed. And Elijah was. He was a faithful servant of God. He had won this victory over these 450 prophets of Baal. He seemed almost invincible. Somebody says he was kind of like Walker, what's his name? You know, the kickboxing guy on TV, what's his name? Chuck Norris and Superman and Hulk Hogan, and all wrapped up into one. Seemed invincible until he found out Jezebel was after him. Now he's bone tired. He's worn out. He's emotionally exhausted. He's depressed. He went out into the wilderness. He went out there to quit. He said, just take away my life. But you know what? It wasn't long till he was back on top. What changed him? What made the change in Elijah? And I want to suggest some things to you tonight as we study the rest of this story. Some 4 things that I believe helped him to overcome and to survive what he was going through. First of all, God wanted him to be physically fit. I want you to look at verses in chapter 19, verses 5 and 6. He was told to arise and eat, and he looked, and behold, there was a cake baking on the coals, and the cruse of water at his head, and he did eat and drink and laid him down again. And the angel that came to him the second time touched him and said, arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. You see, if you'll notice in verse 8, God knew what he was fixing to go through. He said he arose and did eat and drink and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. So God wanted him to rest. The reason he was so down and out is because of his physical condition. He was tired, exhausted, hungry, need to rest. Does it seem unreasonable for us to think that good physical health contributes to good mental and spiritual health? If we're healthy. And it's, the older you get, the harder it is to do those kinds of things that make you that way or help you to be that way. I'll never climb poles like Dan over here, not anymore. I'll never climb mountains like Jason here. How many of you ever climbed? How many of you climbed? 60 mountains? All right, go for it. Go for it. You can have mine, so you're going 61. But I think even when we get older, we need to do things to keep our. I call it. I did this morning. Keep my joints going, and I can remember the day when I could run. I would be afraid to do it today. Afraid some of these artificial joints come out of place. But he was to keep physically fit, eat right, get plenty of rest, and get some physical exercise. That's what I think helps us overcome depression. Number 2, notice verse 9. He came unto a cave and lodged there, and the word of the Lord came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here?" He said, "I've been jealous for the Lord of God of hosts. For the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altar, slain thy prophets with the sword." And notice this. Even I alone am left, and they seek my life to take it away. No, they don't. Jezebel did. Just one woman. Just one woman. So here he was hiding in a cave. What are we prone to do when we're down and out, our spirits are down? What are we prone to do? Stay closed up, okay. What'd you say, Jeff? Yeah. He hid in a cave. He isolated himself. He isolated himself. That's why God asked him, "What are you doing here?" And that's when poor Elijah just poured out his heart to God. And he felt so sorry for himself. "Lord, I want you to know, Lord, I'm the only one left." I had a preacher tell me that one time. I don't know why he was telling me, 'cause I didn't believe it. He came to me and just out of the clear blue walked up to me. And I didn't know him that well, and still don't. I just know what he said to me. And he said, "There's just a few of us left. There's just a few of us left." And I thought, a few of who left? And I guess he meant, I don't know whether he meant preachers or men, or I don't know what he meant, just a few of us left. And he said, "We're going to have to start all over." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We're going to have to start the restoration of the New Testament Christianity all over." I said, "I don't agree with you." I said, "There's still a lot of preachers that believe the truth, and they teach it. Or they may not get on top of the house and shout it where the whole world can hear about it, but in their quiet fateful way they go about their business. I just don't agree with you. Well, then he didn't agree with me, and so I wasn't a good preacher after that, I don't think. but Elijah felt so sorry for himself. And I have seen people in my preaching life dealing with people that were in that situation. I've seen people go in their home. There's no windows. The shutters are closed or the blinds are closed in that house. It's dark in the house like a cave. And I don't know about you all. We just like the sun come in our windows. But if I'm down, I just want to shut myself off from the world. And there are people all around us like that, unfortunately. It may be we have some people in the church that live alone that are like that, and we don't know about it. And Steve and Tammy are going to probably find out about some of that. I don't know. They said yes. Well, I want you to notice what God was doing. God was using the catharsis method of counseling with Elijah. You say, what is that? Well, that's where you let somebody talk it out. Get it out in the open. That's the way most counselors do today. You go pay him maybe $150, $200 an hour, and he'll sit there and say, now, when did this happen? And he gets you to talk, and he'll say, yeah. Now, when did that happen again? Well, tell me more about that. And you get up and you thank him for helping you. All in the world he did was got you to talking and talking it out. And that's what God was doing with Elijah. Sometimes we need somebody to talk to, don't we? I don't care who we are. I used to have older preachers that I talked to. There was one, B.P. Black, he and I talked every week. Every week. He would call me and he'd say, I'm preaching this sermon. What do you think about, have you got anything I could add to it? And I'd call him, I'm doing this, and what can you help me with? We talk to each other. Everybody needs somebody they can talk to. Even sorry preachers like myself. We need somebody. I tell you when I learned that. I learned that with my first local work when I was, I guess when we moved to Evergreen, I was 22 or 23 years old. They had no elders. There was no preacher close to me. If he had been, I wouldn't even known who he was. And there were times I needed somebody that I could just talk to. I just needed somebody to give me some advice about what I needed to do. And we're all like that at times. We don't get too old, but what we still need somebody to talk to. And Elijah needed it. But here's another thing God did with Elijah. Well, I think he got a fresh view of God. I want you to think about it. Picture him now. He's licking his wounds. Elijah said, I'm the only one left. And the key to his depression was that he felt alone. Now, I had a counselor to give me this definition of depression, whether he was accurate or not, it's something to at least think about. He said, depression is anger turned inward. You're angry about something and you internalize it and you become depressed. I think he was angry. He was very angry. Number one, he was angry at Jezebel after him. One thing. And it seems as though he turned that anger on the inside. He thought, I don't have anybody to stand with me. But I want you to look at verse 18. He was so wrong. The Lord said, I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. So with the 7,000, he wasn't alone. He just thought he was. And sometimes when we think that nobody really cares, I think that's when we lose sight of the presence and the power of God. I want you to try to picture the Apostle Paul in Rome in a prison cell. I have an idea he didn't have indoor plumbing. I have an idea that he didn't have heat and cooling either. I have an idea they didn't have a nice, warm, and comfortable mattress to lay down on at night. And here he is in prison. And he's writing in the 4th chapter of 2 Timothy. And he's asking them to come to see him, come before winter. The reason he wanted to come before winter, the ports would be closed and they wouldn't be able to get there. So he said, I want you to come, bring the parchments and the like. And he said, at first, no one stood with me. That's in verse 16. He felt lonely. And he said, then the verse 17 is the answer to loneliness. But the Lord stood with me. The Lord stood with me. A widow told me one day, a widow, I may live alone. Or no, she put it this way, I may live by myself, but I am never alone. That's her quoting her. I may live by myself, but I'm never alone. I've never forgotten that. When Jesus gave the Great Commission according to Matthew's Gospel, this was his promise to people that teach the Bible. Christians. I am what? Starts with a W. With you. How long? Always. Even to the end of the age. And I take that to be the Christian age. I'm with you. I'm with you. I can't get my mind off of the people up in the Carolinas and some of these other places that when you have to have pack mules to take stuff into them, they out there somewhere, And you know some of them are still out there by themselves without necessities that they had before all that happened. But they're not alone. But there are good people all over the United States that are coming to their aid. And look over here. We're going to send some stuff up there, aren't we, Hazel? We're going to send some stuff up there. Elijah, to overcome his depression, needed to spend some time with God. He needed a fresh view of God. I'll put it that way. He needed to realize that he was never alone. You can hide under a juniper tree. You can hide under a cave. You can go hide all you want to. You can hide in your closet. But you're not ever going to get away from the presence of God. I think there are three things that we can do and when we think about spending time with God. And these are just simple things, and you know them already, but I will mention them anyway. One thing we can do is spend time with God in prayer. Spend time with God in prayer. I have an idea that quite a number of us here today, if you didn't do it this morning, you'll probably do it tonight, or you might have done it sometime during the day. Thank God for last night. Spend time in prayer. A second thing that I believe would help us is to study His Word. And the third thing is to worship consistently. Not haphazardly, but consistently. Someone has said that we ought to do these three things every day. Number one, talk to God every day. That's prayer, isn't it? Then let God talk to you every day, and that's reading the Bible. And then talk to somebody else about God every day. And that doesn't mean we have to go preach them a sermon, but you can just use your good judgment, common sense, and share some thought with them. You know, you could say, you know, our preacher, and I'm talking about not Billy now, I'm talking about Ray. He's my preacher too, did you know that? Our preacher preached this good sermon, son. I wish you could have been there and heard it. He said thus and so and so and so and so, you know. Well, you're not preaching to them, but you're preaching this preacher's sermon to them, you know. Say something to somebody else, or just say something kind. You want to get people to you go to a restaurant and somebody waits on you. You want to get them to smile. You know what you do? What is your name? What is your name? And then call them by their name. There's a young lady down at Cracker Barrel like that, and I know her name now when I sometimes say, is Rose working today? Rosemary here today? And one day got to talking to Rosemary. This is a small, small world, people. And she wanted me to pray for her daddy. And her daddy has cancer. And for all his life, he's been the mechanic for a farmer just down Highway 71 here. And so I saw her today. I said, how's your dad? She came over and spent time. But she's on my radar, boy. She's on my radio. Y'all pray. But I have an opportunity to teach her the gospel. But we need to talk to people about Christ. Well, a final thing, and we just got time for this. Get busy. Get busy doing something. Notice verses 15 and 16. And the Lord said unto him, that is to Elijah, go, return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you come, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu the son of Nimrod anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah thou shalt anoint to be prophet in thy room. And Elisha became prophet, and over in 2 Kings chapter 2, this is after Elijah had been translated. Elijah did not die. He was carried in by a whirlwind into heaven, drawn with horses of fire, chariots of fire, whatever. Sounds amazing to me. He was a prophet of fire. And one of the great characters of the Bible. Get busy doing something. Become active. Because idleness is fertile ground for depression. Depression is, I hesitate to say this because it may not be totally accurate, almost always related to just thinking about yourself, self-centered. Physical activity, I think, is the key to mind control. Get busy. Well, 4 things old Elijah did, and he got busy. And I wish I had to. I learned in going back and looking at things that I have preached that I got more sermons I preached out of 1st and 2nd Kings maybe than any Old Testament books. So maybe what I ought to do is put them in a booklet where you all can have outlines of them. So who wants to type them up for me? Never mind, I'll get it done. All right, thank you all for being here. Ray's off on a vacation and enjoying himself. He and Misty for her birthday. And I believe that I heard Eric say that they would be back Friday or Saturday. So he'll be here Sunday, and we will all be here Sunday too. Thank you all for being here tonight, and we have a good number present.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.